SBC Media.
Welcome to iGaming Daily, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe. Supported by SBC Summit Barcelona, the industry-leading conference bringing you the future of sports betting and iGaming.
SBC Summit Barcelona is where you can experience the entire global industry coverage under one roof. Join 10,000 industry professionals for 3 days of game-changing conversation and education. Get your tickets now at sbcevents.com.
To bet or not to bet? That is the legal question surrounding DFS sites in the US offering prop-style options to their customers. While many people, including FanDuel and DraftKings, insist these are just sportsbooks in a different outfit, others insist they fall well within the legal realm of fantasy sports. One such proponent is Betr, who is finally taking its platform to a nationwide scale, not through sportsbooks, but through Betr Picks, a new DFS site available in 24 states, including Texas and California. On today's episode of iGaming Daily, we'll discuss Betr's big announcement and whether this is the shot in the arm the company needs to go from good to better to best. I'm Jessica Welman, editor of SBC Americas, joined by my senior writer, Charlie Horner, who is looking quite dapper because apparently it's picture day in the office.
Yeah, thanks. It's like going back to school. It's picture day in the office. So, everyone's looking great.
Well, I approve. I wish it was a visual podcast so you guys could see how nice Charlie looks today. And it is back to school season, both because my Facebook is inundated with photos of children with tiny chalkboards, and because we're getting into the start of football announcement season. And one of the big announcements of this week came from some group we've talked about very recently on this podcast, which is Betr. And they have announced that they have a new product now called Betr Picks. What's kind of the broad strokes of what Betr Picks is, Charlie?
So like Jess alluded to in the introduction there, Betr Picks is a prop-style DFS site which will allow users to answer different questions about player performance during a game, and the more questions that the player gets right, the better they. I've done it again. I've said better in the description.
I did mine on purpose, though, so I'm already worse off than you are.
But that's the general gist of it. But the key thing is that this is going to be rolled out in 24 states instead of just the 3 or 4 that they're licensed in for their full real money wagering sportsbook, which obviously is going to expose the brand to a much wider pool of players.
Yeah, and that was one of the points of criticism that we made a couple weeks ago, which is if you have this giant audience of Jake Paul and the Kvinder twins, how much of that audience is over the age of 21, interested in gambling for real money sportsbooks, and happens to live in either Massachusetts or Ohio, So this does give it the scale that Betr needs to actually start making some sort of substantial money. We have an interview on SBC America with Betr CEO Joey Levy, in which he said, this is truly the first opportunity we have to take the media side of the company and use that impact and the fast growth we're experiencing over there to bring a product to people. I admittedly am an Android user, so usually we're a little behind on some of these things. I tried to play the Betr Picks product in my phone, and the app that I downloaded didn't have it on there, even though it's in Kentucky. So, but prop style DFS, for those who kind of don't understand the difference between traditional DFS and props DFS. Traditional DFS is taking the season-long fantasy football concept and kind of dialing it up into a micro betting sort of opportunity, now that I think about it, because you, instead of drafting a team for the entire year, you draft a team for that weekend or that day or that evening and compete against other people who have drafted teams where each player has a salary, you have a maximum amount of money you can spend, highest score wins. That's the DFS model that DraftKings and FanDuel do. The prop style model is essentially taking a player and saying, okay, is Patrick Mahomes throwing for more or less than 300 yards? And you pick one side of the option. So that's why we always I like to describe it as prop style because it's very similar to a prop bet. And then you have to do more than one player, and you can do anywhere from 2 to 8, and you can get as many as 100 times your stake back, depending on how much you get right and how much you get wrong. Charlie, I assume this is a distinctly US product, and you don't really have anything like this where you live or that you've heard about in other markets across Europe.
Yeah, this model, there's nothing specifically like this in its own form of app. But I guess there are free-to-play games on some of the regular sportsbooks in the UK where you can do these kind of picks of will player X score X amount of goals today? Will they have a certain amount of shots on target? And it's that kind of free-to-play game that is aimed at acquiring new customers or encouraging people to place bets and putting those prop-style bets on. But nothing in a DFS packaging, really.
Yeah, it's such a uniquely US beast, both because we are a place where season-long fantasy has been a part of the culture for, at this point, like 30-something years. And so it was a natural evolution of DFS. But some of it is kind of this legal nitpicking where these sites come about to fit into a definition of gambling or not gambling in this case. And we've seen that many groups are doing this. Prize Picks is probably the most successful one. Underdog Fantasy does very well in this category. Monkey Knife Fight was a big player in this category before Bally shut it down. What we haven't seen, on this scale at least, is the Betr Picks product, as Joey Levy explains in this interview, is going to be on a shared app with the sportsbook, where in states where the sportsbook isn't legal, there's a free-to-play version of the sportsbook that you can do along with real money picks. The states where sports betting is legal, they do not have DFS offerings yet. But the idea is eventually they'll both live in the same app, and you can tab back and forth between them, which is something we haven't seen FanDuel and DraftKings do for even the traditional DFS product. They have a shared wallet, but it's not a shared app, to my understanding. That's not to say nobody has dabbled in this space. Bally's did buy Monkey Knife Fight before eventually shutting it down. They would do promotional offers across Monkey and Bally Bet in the states where it was possible, but they never fully linked the two. So that piece of it is really interesting. But I think the other piece that's interesting is, we said this on the last pod, my understanding was this was going to be a micro betting site. Charlie, that was your understanding, right?
Yes. I mean, we went into depth a couple of weeks ago on this one. But I thought we best go and look at the press release that Betr put out when it first announced itself on the scene, and I've done the old Control F and searched micro betting. They said micro betting 15 times 15? In that press release. So when they now say that, this was all part of the plan, we're not necessarily a micro betting company. I'm not sure whether I buy that because they did package themselves 100% as a micro betting firm. We've discussed that, of course, you don't build a whole tech platform for real money sports betting in 6 weeks. It's always planned. But it seems that they've rolled back on that perception of a micro betting firm.
Well, and also what we're seeing now on the pick side is fueled by the Chameleon platform that they purchased from Fans Unite earlier this year. May. So fairly recently purchased this Chameleon gaming platform for like $7 million and change. So kind of a steal, given that it's going to be very integral to what they're doing. They were already kind of using it, and then they just bought it outright. that is helping with the Betr Picks platform. But now what we're hearing is that the app that we've seen and criticized on this podcast was a beta app all along. That is what they call version 0. Version 1 is coming. And in version 1, you will, through this Chameleon platform, have more full game betting options, parlay options, same game parlay options, player props, and all of the things that are in addition to the basic full line games and micro betting that you kind of need to be competitive. And to Joey Levy's credit, he said it was part of the plan all along. He at least concedes, we know at least now we're not succeeding if we don't have this. So, I'm glad that whether you knew 19 months ago or whether you knew 19 weeks ago that you need this, you're taking the steps to get it. So they are eventually going to roll out like what sounds kind of like every other sports book, right?
Yeah, I was just about to mention that is they package themselves as being different to every other sports book. They're for the young people, it's short form content, all these things that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. But essentially, now, was following the rollout of the V1 with the Chameleon platform, they're going to be like every other sports book on the market, really. So I don't know whether. Yeah, I'm not too sure this is going to differentiate them anymore, or whether this is just a way to leverage that Jake Paul's star power that he has across the US and get into some of those states where they don't have regulated online sports betting.
Well, it's kind of rock and a hard place, right? I will admit, we're kind of putting them in a spot where, okay, you can either say you're about micro betting and continue to lose money in the sportsbook space because there's no way this model is succeeding, or you can concede you need everything and say, okay, actually our differentiator is the media side of this business and the ability to use Betr Picks and make, what is still kind of fairly simplified transactions, more or less on a number, or something that's a little simpler than, 7-leg parlays or first 5 innings bets in baseball, and convert people that way. And that the way you're going to succeed is through conversion and customer acquisition. So I will give them, we've kind of backed them into a corner where there's no winning. So I mean, of this move overall, I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense. I think it's the only proceedable way forward. What we're seeing, at least here in the States, is a lot of people being very critical of them because they are very critical of the idea of prop-centered DFS content. And I have seen some people say, okay, well, there's a reason these other operators haven't gotten into this space. And this is where, if you've never had to deal with a company's legal team, I envy you. It's not the most fun, because when it comes to making choices based on the potential legality of something, it's just not really like black and white, where we think this is illegal, we think this is legal. It's not that simple. Every company's legal department has what is called a risk appetite, where essentially they're issuing an opinion of the likelihood that this will, pardon my French, come back to bite you in the ass is X%. So for this reason, we recommend you move forward. The legal team at Betr is incredibly confident in the states that they've chosen to go into. They feel like they are operating within the letter of the law, and that there is a low likelihood that somebody is going to challenge that they are operating within the letter of the law. If you're Flutter, you have a whole lot more to lose as a company if something is found to not be within the letter of the law. You also don't have nearly as much to gain as what Betr can gain from going from 2 states to 24 states.
Yeah, 100%. There's a massive opportunity from the way I see it, from of course, we've mentioned leveraging Jake Paul's brand, but it's also that opportunity to really position yourself as a brand to go to for that younger bettor who maybe doesn't understand the technicalities of real money bets, isn't in a legal state, but they can start to learn about the different types of bets that you can put on, and those prop style offerings that they have can help those younger players or those players in the States that might legalize in the coming years, or how to place those bets. So I think in terms of positioning yourself to go after that opportunity, there's massive potential benefits for Betr here. Yeah,
the upside is very high. To give a little bit of context, none of us know in Georgia, in Texas, in California, how Prize Picks and Underdog, how successful they are. But these are licensed, by the way. I think some of the stories that you see on Twitter kind of fail to acknowledge there are plenty of states that have signed off and said, what you are doing is perfectly within the parameters of what we call DFS. You have paid your fees, you pay your taxes, here's your license. In Arizona, which put out results yesterday, I think I saw that Prize Picks did like 3.4 million in revenue for the month. It's a slower month. This was for May, so you've got a little bit of hockey, a little bit of basketball, baseball. So it's like you're not breaking the bank with this. I don't think that it's going to be some huge transformational amount of money, but given what we've talked about, they literally aren't making in Ohio and Massachusetts. It's money. And at this point, I think if you have an opportunity to make money, you got to go for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've covered the losses that it made in Massachusetts and Ohio. So getting this brand out, managing to get some money through the door is, well, it's welcome for any business, and Betr no different.
Yeah. Last kind of point on this in terms of Betr the Sportsbook. As we've mentioned, this version that is live in 2 states, they've acknowledged this is not a product that is going to win us market share. They will roll out in Virginia in the next few weeks. And then from there, I would not expect you to see any more new states launch for Betr Sportsbook. It is not that they are abandoning Sportsbook, but they do have this product that is live, is ready to go, and is going into states where they do not have the burden of needing to get licenses to go live, which is why Ohio, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, some of these states, Arizona, where you do need a DFS license to operate. The intent, from what I'm kind of told by Joey, is he wouldn't say exactly which states. We'll get into states eventually. We plan to increase the number of states for Betr Picks by the end of the year. Those states do need some amount of marketing support to them. That's kind of going to be the focus of football acquisition season. And then, 2024 will be when Betr Sportsbook kind of becomes a bigger part of the picture again. So, it's an interesting pivot. I think we both kind of agree that if it's an option, and it's certainly better than what's going on right now. Oh, I just did it again, Charlie, and I didn't do that one on purpose. All right, that seems like the sign that we need to pivot. We need to be like Betr and pivot to a different idea. It's earnings call season. So, Charlie, over on SBC Americas, I think to be like Sesame Street, the word of the day is profitability when it comes to these Q2 reports so far, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You covered Rush Street yesterday afternoon, and they've noted profitability for Q2. We had BetMGM, who recorded a positive EBITDA quarter in Q2. I covered the MGM earnings call today on SBC Americas. You can read the write-up from that on the site. Bill Hornbuckle had quite a few interesting lines on BetMGM's performance, notably that he wasn't particularly happy with the product itself, and that hopefully the Entain's acquisition of Angstrom Sports would really help to improve the tech on that app.
Yeah, Caesars also digitally profitable for quarter 2. What I'm hearing so far from these, though, is that quarter 3, high acquisition. You really don't know with football where, some heavy losses might come or wins might come. So tough to tell if Q3 will be profitable, but most of them are saying that, we expect Q4 should be fine as well. So nice to see that everyone is kind of trending in that direction. The other thing I would say people should check out on SBC Americas, and we'll have more on it as it develops. Strange things are afoot in Iowa. College students in Iowa are being prosecuted at the criminal level for masking their identity and betting on other people's sports betting apps. This is the first time I can really think of that this has gone to the criminal level. If prosecuted to the full letter of the law, it could literally mean prison time. It could be the charge. You can have up to 2 years in prison. And I think on the NCAA side, you're probably losing a fair chunk of eligibility because most of these guys were betting. They were betting hundreds of times. And of those times, at least a couple dozen were on the team and sport that they play for. So we'll be monitoring that heading into the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye on SBC Americas, and of course, keep an eye on all the news from all facets of gambling besides America on iGaming Daily, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of iGaming Daily, brought to you in conjunction with SBC Summit Barcelona, being held at the Fira Barcelona Montjuic on the 19th to the 21st of September. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network, or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.